Welcome to Storytales. Please like this video and subscribe to Storytales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. The alarm beeped once before Nathan Beckett's hand shot out to silence it. 5 a.m. He'd been awake for 20 minutes already, lying motionless in the dark, counting his breaths. Old habits. He slid from the bed without disturbing the sleeping form of his wife. Maddie, as everyone called her, rolled slightly into the warm depression he left behind but didn't wake. Nathan paused, studying her face in the dim light filtering through the blinds. Soft brown hair splayed across the pillow, lips slightly parted. Beautiful, even now, 10 years of marriage. Sometimes it felt like a lifetime, other times like an undercover assignment that had gone on too long. Nathan moved silently to the bathroom, avoiding the creaky floorboard 3 steps from the bed. The face that stared back at him from the mirror belonged to someone else. A stranger with tired eyes. 42 years old, but the lines around his eyes told stories of a man who had seen twice that many years of life. He traced the faint scar that ran along his jawline. A memento from Kandahar. The knife had missed his carotid by millimeters. The man who had wielded it hadn't been so lucky. After a quick shower, Nathan dressed in a gray suit and blue tie. The costume of Nathan Beckett, logistics consultant. Boring. Safe. Predictable. Hidden beneath the bathroom sink, behind the extra toilet paper and cleaning supplies, was a small waterproof case. Inside, a Glock 19, 3 passports with different names, but his face, and $20,000 in various currencies. Old habits again. He closed the case without taking anything. Not today. The smell of coffee greeted him as he made his way to the kitchen. Their house in the suburbs of Denver was modest but comfortable. 3 bedrooms, an open-plan kitchen and living area, a small backyard with a swing set that Liam had outgrown but refused to let them remove. "Dad!" The voice came from the kitchen, followed by the scrape of a chair against tile. Liam Beckett, all gangly limbs and messy hair, scrambled toward him. At 10 years old, he was the spitting image of Nathan at that age, except for his eyes. Those were Maddie's. "Whoa, buddy." Nathan caught his son in a hug that lifted him off the ground. "What are you doing up so early?" "Science project due today. Mom helped me finish it last night, but I wanted to show you before you left." Nathan set the boy down, noting with a pang that he seemed taller than just a week ago. He'd been gone for 8 days this time. 8 days tracking and eliminating a cell operating out of Buenos Aires. To Maddie and Liam, he'd been at a logistics conference in Houston. "Lead the way, Professor Beckett." Liam grinned and pulled him into the kitchen where a model of the solar system sat on the table, planets suspended by nearly invisible fishing line. "See? I painted all the planets myself. Did you know Jupiter has a storm that's been going for over 300 years? Nathan examined the model, genuinely impressed. "This is amazing, Liam. Definitely A+ work." Mom said the same thing. Liam beamed. "She helped with the wire part. Your mom's pretty smart." "Not as smart as you, though." Liam looked up at him with adoration that made Nathan's chest tight. "You know everything." If only they were true, Nathan thought. If he knew everything, maybe he would understand why, after a decade of playing house, part of him still felt like he was living someone else's life. "Not everything," Nathan said, ruffling his son's hair. "But I do know you're going to knock them dead with this project." "Knock them dead?" "Like in those movies Grandpa watches." Nathan winced internally at his slip. "Figure of speech, buddy. It means they'll be impressed." "Oh." Liam seemed disappointed, then brightened. "Can we watch those movies when I'm older?" "We'll see." Nathan poured himself coffee, black and strong enough to strip paint. "Now eat your breakfast. Bus comes in 20 minutes. As Liam settled back at the table with his cereal, Nathan heard the shower running upstairs. Maddie was awake, that he sipped his coffee, watching his son. This was real. This was worth protecting. Worth killing for. Liam was the reason he'd considered leaving his past behind. Not Maddie, not the house, not the illusion of normalcy. Just Liam. But men like Nathan Beckett didn't get clean breaks. They didn't get to walk away. Not completely. The shower stopped. Minutes later, Maddie appeared, wrapped in a robe, hair damp. "You're home." She smiled, but something flashed in her eyes. Surprise? Disappointment? It was gone before Nathan could decipher it. Got in late, he said. Didn't want to wake you. She crossed him, kissed his cheek. Her perfume, something expensive he'd bought her last Christmas, filled his nostrils. How was Houston? She asked, pouring herself coffee. Huh, boring. Nathan shrugged. Same as always. Dad, Liam interrupted. Can you drive me to school today? Please? I want to show Jake my project before class. Nathan checked his watch. Sure, buddy. Go get your things ready. Liam bolted from the table, leaving his half-finished cereal behind. You spoil him, Maddie said, but she was smiling. Someone has to. Nathan finished his coffee. He's growing up too fast. They all do. She moved around the kitchen with practiced efficiency, cleaning up breakfast dishes. Will you be home tonight? Should be. Nathan watched her hands, graceful and quick. He'd seen those same hands patch up Liam's scraped knee last summer, tender and careful. It was hard to reconcile that image with the woman who had agreed to become his wife while he was deep undercover, the woman who had never known his real occupation, and 01 to CIA had been happy about his marriage, especially not his handler. Personal attachments are liabilities, Michaels had warned. But Nathan had been stubborn. He'd wanted something real, something that wasn't built on lies. The irony wasn't lost on him. I should finish getting ready, Maddie said, breaking into his thoughts. Parent-teacher conferences this afternoon. She was an elementary school teacher at a different school than Liam's, teaching second grade. Nathan nodded. I'll take Liam. After she went upstairs, Nathan stood in the kitchen, listening to the sounds of his house. The hum of the refrigerator. Liam's footsteps overhead. Water running through pipes. Normal sounds. Safe sounds, but something fell off. Had fell off for weeks now. Little things. Maddie's distraction. Phone calls that ended abruptly when he entered the room. Late nights grading papers that never seemed to diminish. Nathan wasn't a man who believed in coincidences. He wasn't a man who ignored his instincts. But he was also a man who had learned to compartmentalize. To put suspicions aside until he had proof. Ready, Dad. Liam appeared, backpack slung over one shoulder, solar system model held carefully in both hands. Let's roll, astronaut. Nathan took the model, amazed again at the detail. This is really impressive work. Thanks. Liam grinned. Jake's going to be so jealous. His dad helped him make a volcano, but it didn't even explode right. Nathan stifled a laugh. Not everyone can be an expert on explosions. But you would be, right? If you had to make a volcano, I'd give it my best shot. Nathan opened the front door. Say goodbye to your mom. Bye, Mom. Liam shouted up the stairs. Maddie appeared at the top, dressed now in his simple blouse and skirt. Have a great day, sweetie. Knock him dead with that project. Nathan caught her eye, one eyebrow raised. She smiled, a shared joke between them. Outside, the October morning was crisp, the sky a clear Colorado blue. Their neighborhood was quiet, neat houses with well-maintained lawns, 2-car garages, and the occasional basketball hoop. Nathan loaded the solar system into the back of his Audi sedan practical, understated, exactly what a logistics consultant would drive. Seatbelt, he reminded Liam as they got in as they drove. Liam chattered about school, friends, the new video game he wanted. Nathan listened, asking questions, storing away details about his son's life. Details he missed too often. Dad, Liam's voice took on a serious tone. When's your next trip? Not for a while. Nathan lied smoothly. Why? Just wondering. Tommy's dad is always gone too, but he's in the military. He flies planes. Nathan kept his eyes on the road. Different job, same problem. Too much time away from home. Do you wish you had a different job? One where you didn't have to travel? The question hit harder than Nathan expected. Sometimes, he admitted, but then who would pay for all those video games you want? Liam giggled. Mom could. She says she could support us just fine on her own. Nathan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Does she? Yeah. She told Mrs. Wilson that when they were having wine the other night. She said you were optional. Liam sounded out the word carefully. What does that mean? Nathan forced his face to remain neutral. It means I'm a choice, not a necessity. Like dessert. Oh. Liam considered this. I think you're necessary. The simple statement twisted something in Nathan's chest. Thanks, buddy. They pulled up to the school, joining the line of cars dropping off students. Nathan helped Liam carry his project inside, nodding at the security guard who checked his ID, a measure implemented after a school shooting in Texas last year. The guard waved them through, barely glancing at the ID card. Sloppy. Nathan could have shown him a library card and gotten the same response. Liam led the way to his classroom, practically bouncing with excitement. They found his teacher, Ms. Reynolds, arranging projects on display tables. "Mr. Beckett, how nice to see you." She smiled warmly. Nathan had missed the last 2 parent-teacher meetings due to work commitments. "Liam's been telling me all about how you helped with the research for his project." Nathan glanced at his son, who beamed back at him. "Another lie, but a kind one. He did most of the work," Nathan said. "I just provided some books and advice." Ms. Reynolds examined the model as Liam placed it on table. "This is excellent work, Liam. Very detailed." "Thanks, Ms. Reynolds." Liam turned to Nathan. "Dad, you gotta go now, or you'll be late for work." Nathan checked his watch. "You're right. Be good. Learn something, all that responsible parent talk." He winked at his son. Liam rolled his eyes but grinned. "Bye, Dad. See you tonight." "Absolutely." As Nathan walked back through the school hallways, he felt the weight of his 2 lives pressing in on him. Here, he was just another dad dropping off his kid. In 6 hours, he was scheduled to brief his team on the Buenos Aires operation. In between, he'd review intelligence on a suspected bomb maker operating out of Damascus Point. One reality bled into the other, never quite separate. His phone buzzed as he reached his car. "Michaels." "Beckett," he answered. "Need you in early." His handler's voice was terse. "New intel on Damascus." Nathan started the car. "On my way." He glanced back at the school as he pulled away. Liam will be fine. Always was. The kid was adaptable, resilient, like his father. The drive to the office took 30 minutes. The office was a nondescript building in downtown Denver that housed a legitimate international shipping company on the first 6 floors. The 7th floor, accessible only by a secure elevator requiring both a key card and retinal scan, belonged to the CIA. Nathan parked in the underground garage, took the service elevator to the 3rd floor, switched to another elevator, then walked 2 flights of stairs to reach a seemingly ordinary janitor's closet. Inside, beyond a false wall, was the secure elevator. The security measures were excessive even by agency standards, but this wasn't a regular field office. This was a black site, off the books, known to fewer than 50 people within the agency itself. The retinal scanner hummed. Identity confirmed. "Welcome, Operative Beckett," a computerized voice announced. The 7th floor was quiet, sparsely populated at this hour. A few analysts hunched over computers, a maintenance worker checking ceiling panels. Nathan nodded to them as he passed, heading for the conference room at the end of the hall. Michaels was waiting, files spread across the table. At 55, he had the look of a man who'd spent too many years behind a desk soft around the middle. Pale, but his eyes were sharp as ever. "Buenos Aires was clean?" he asked without preamble. 3 targets eliminated, no witnesses, no traces. Nathan dropped into a chair. "What's the Damascus update?" Michaels slid a file across the table. "Al-Zahar's disappeared. Last known location was a safe house in the old city, but he cleared out 3 days ago. Local assets think he's moved his operation." Nathan opened the file, scanning satellite images, intelligence reports. "Border crossing, nothing confirmed, but we intercepted this." Michaels tapped a grainy photograph of a tall, thin man boarding a private plane, taken at a private airstrip outside Damascus. The plane landed in Cairo, then disappeared off radar. He has someone helping him, someone with resources. Nathan studied the image. This doesn't track with his previous patterns. Exactly why we're concerned. Michaels leaned forward. This isn't a bomb maker running scared. This is someone executing a plan. Nathan closed the file. "What's the play?" "We track the money. Find out who's bankrolling him. That's your next assignment." Michaels hesitated. "It means Cairo, possibly Riyadh. 2 weeks minimum. 2 weeks away from home. Away from Liam. When? Will's up tomorrow night." Nathan nodded, already calculating. He'd have tonight with Liam, then 2 weeks of video calls and business trip souvenirs. "I'll make it work," he said. Michaels studied him. "You always do." "But Nathan, it doesn't get easier. The double life. The lies. Speaking from experience, a shadow crossed Michael's face. 2 ex-wives. 3 kids who barely speak to me. Yes, speaking from experience. Nathan stood. I need to review the Damascus files. Have the travel documents ready by morning. Already on it. Michaels gathered his papers. Briefing at 4. Full team. The rest of the day passed in a blur of intelligence reports, satellite imagery, and target assessments. Nathan worked through lunch, focusing entirely on Damascus, on Al-Zahar, on the mission ahead. This was the part of himself he never brought home, the cold, methodical operator who could track a man across continents and eliminate him without hesitation to take home. He was Liam's father. Here, he was something else entirely. The team briefing ran long. By the time Nathan left the office, it was after 7. He called home from the car. Hey, you coming home for dinner? Maddie's voice was light, casual. On my way now. Sorry, got caught up. It's fine. Liam's already eaten, but I saved you a plate. How the project? Go over. Oh, he was so excited when he got home. Said all the kids thought it was the best one in class. Her voice softened. He misses you when you're gone, you know. Nathan swallowed the guilt that rose in his throat. I know. I'm home now. For tonight, at least. Another trip, a note of something resignation, relief, colored her voice. Cairo. 2 weeks. Leaving tomorrow night. Right. The word was clipped. We'll talk when you get home. The line went dead before he could respond. Nathan drove the rest of the way in silence, turning over the conversation in his mind. There had been no argument, no real complaint in her voice. Just that note of something, the same something that had been nagging at him for weeks. Their house was lit up when he arrived, warm against the darkness of early evening. Through the living room window, he could see Liam on the couch, playing a video game. Normal. Safe. Nathan sat in his car for a moment, watching his son, wondering what it would be like to have just one life instead of 2. To be only a father, a husband, to not carry the weight of national security, of eliminated targets, of necessary lies. But that wasn't who he was. He grabbed his briefcase, which contained actual logistics documents to maintain his cover, and headed inside. Dad! Liam paused his game and bounded over. Did Mom tell you? My project was the best one. Ms. Reynolds gave me a special science award. Nathan dropped his briefcase to catch his son in a hug. That's fantastic, buddy. Told you you'd knock him dead. Jake was so jealous. Liam grinned. His volcano just made a mess. Well, not everyone could be a brilliant scientist like you. Nathan ruffled his hair. Where's your mom? Upstairs on the phone. Liam returned to his game. She said you should eat. There's food in the microwave. Nathan glanced toward the stairs, then headed to the kitchen. The plate in the microwave held lasagna, Liam's favorite. He heated it and ate standing at the counter, listening to the sound of Liam's game and, faintly, Maddie's voice from upstairs. He couldn't make out words, just the cadence of her speech. Animated, excited. When he finished eating, he went to join Liam on the couch. What were we playing? Cosmic Defenders. Liam handed him a controller. You could be player 2. They played for nearly an hour, Liam coaching him through the mechanics of the game, delighted when Nathan managed to help defeat a particularly difficult enemy. This was the good part, the real part, just being with his son. Eventually, Maddie came downstairs. She'd changed into yoga pants and a loose sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked younger, more like the woman he'd married a decade ago. Homework done? She asked Liam. Yes, Mom. Liam didn't look away from the screen. Then it's time for bed. School tomorrow. 5 more minutes. Liam pleaded. Dad just got home. Maddie hesitated, then sighed. 5 minutes. Then teeth brushed, face washed, bed. Thanks, Mom. Liam immediately turned back to the game. Quick, Dad. We can beat this level in 5 minutes if we hurry. Nathan caught Maddie's eye over their son's head. She gave him a small smile before heading back to the kitchen. 5 minutes later, Nathan enforced the bedtime rule despite Liam's protests. He supervised teeth brushing, listened to Liam's prayers, something Maddie had instituted, though neither she nor Nathan were particularly religious, and tucked him in. Dad! Liam's voice was sleepy now. Will you bring me something from Cairo? Of course. Nathan sat on the edge of the bed. Any requests? Something cool, not just a t-shirt. Nathan smiled. I'll find the coolest non-t-shirt item in all of Cairo. Promise. Promise. And you'll call? Like you did from Houston? Nathan nodded, ignoring the twist in his gut. Every day that I can. Liam yawned. Good. Love you, Dad. Love you too, buddy. Nathan sat there until Liam's breathing deepened into sleep. Then he quietly stood, adjusted the covers, and left the room, leaving the door cracked just the way Liam liked it. Downstairs, Maddie was waiting in the kitchen, a glass of red wine in her hand. She poured one for him, too. He's out? She asked. Nathan nodded, taking the wine. Like a light. That project really took it out of him. He worked so hard on it. She took a sip of wine, watching him over the rim of her glass. Thanks for helping him with it. Nathan leaned against the counter, maintaining a casual distance. He was proud of it. He wanted to impress you. The simple statement hung between them, heavy with implication. He always impresses me, Nathan said. Maddie nodded, looking down at her wine. So, Cairo, last minute, big client. The lies came easily after years of practice. 2 weeks. Give or take a few days. I'll know more once I'm there. She swirled her wine, considering. I think I'm going to take Liam to visit my sister that weekend. Get him out of the house. Take his mind off you being gone. Nathan hadn't seen Maddie's sister in years. They lived in Chicago, if he remembered correctly. Sounds good. He sipped his wine. Everything okay with Karen? Teresa? Maddie corrected. Karen's my cousin. And yes, everything's fine. Just thought it would be nice for Liam. Another small alarm bell rang in Nathan's mind. He filed it away, maintaining his neutral expression. Lisa mentioned a girls' weekend next month, Maddie continued, referring to one of her teacher friends. Thought I might go, if you're not traveling then. Where to? Miami. Nothing fancy, just a beach weekend. She turned away, rinsing her wine glass in the sink. I could use the break. Miami. Something about the way she said it casual, too casual. Should be fine, Nathan said, watching her back. I'm not scheduled for anything in November yet. Good. She dried her hands on a dish towel. I'm heading up. Don't stay up too late. You're still on Houston time. She kissed his cheek as she passed, her hand briefly resting on his arm. A gesture they'd exchanged thousands of times. But tonight, it fell hollow. Nathan stayed in the kitchen after she went upstairs, his mind working. She'd mentioned Miami too, casually. Had corrected him about her sister's name, Teresa. Not Karen, but he distinctly remembered Karen being the sister, Teresa the cousin. Small inconsistencies, but they nagged at him. Or maybe he was being paranoid. Occupational hazard. He finished his wine, checked the locks on the doors, another habit, and headed upstairs. Maddie was already in bed, her back to his side, apparently asleep. Nathan undressed quietly and slid under the covers, maintaining the careful space between them that had become normal over the years. In the early days of their marriage, they'd slept tangled together. When had that changed? He lay awake for a long time, listening to Maddie's breathing, not entirely convinced she was actually asleep. Outside, a light rain began to fall, tapping against the windows. Tomorrow, he would prepare for Cairo. Al-Zahar, the mission. But tonight, in this bed, with his wife pretending to sleep beside him, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was another threat, closer to home. Nathan closed his eyes, forcing his body to relax, his mind to quiet. One problem at a time. Tomorrow was Cairo. Everything else could wait. But even as he drifted into sleep, part of him remained alert, watchful. Old habits. The mission in Cairo had gone sideways almost immediately. Al-Zahar's trail had led not to Cairo proper, but to a compound in the desert, heavily guarded and clearly expecting trouble. Nathan and his team had been forced to abort their initial approach, regroup, and develop a new strategy. What should have been a 2-week operation stretched to nearly 3. By the time Nathan eliminated Al-Zahar, a clean shot from 800 meters as the bombmaker stepped onto his balcony for his nightly cigarette. He'd been away from home for 19 days. 19 days of brief, awkward video calls with Liam, of increasingly short text exchanges with Maddie. The flight back to Denver was long and uncomfortable. Nathan's shoulder ached where a guard's bullet had grazed him during the extraction, a minor wound, but annoying. He treated it himself, avoiding official medical channels that would generate reports that It was nearly midnight when he finally arrived home. The house was dark except for the porch light and a dim glow from the kitchen, the light above the stove that they always left on when someone was expected home late. Nathan entered quietly, disarming the security system with practiced ease. The house was silent. Liam would be asleep. Maddie, too. Most likely, he set his suitcase down by the door and moved through the darkened house to the kitchen, intending to grab a drink before heading upstairs. The mission had been successful, but messy. He needed a moment to decompress, to shed the skin of the operative before becoming husband and father again. As he poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey, he heard Maddie's voice floating down from upstairs. She was on the phone, speaking quietly, but with an intensity that carried through the stillness of the house. "Baby, just kidnap his son and ask for money. He'll give whatever you ask for. I'll make it look like he never came back from school and start crying. After you get the money, we move to Miami. I already prepared everything to destroy him." Nathan froze, the glass halfway to his lips. For a moment, he thought he must have misheard, that the exhaustion of the mission, the jet lag, the wound in his shoulder were playing tricks on his mind. But there was no mistaking what he'd heard. His wife Maddie planning to kidnap Liam. Their son, his son. The cold rush of adrenaline was familiar, welcome even. It cleared his head, sharpened his senses. He set the glass down without drinking, his hand steady. There was no anger, no panic. Just clarity. He could go upstairs now. Confront her. Watch her face as she tried to lie her way out of it. But that would tip his hand, give her time to warn whoever she was talking to. No, better to let her think her plan was still secret. Let her think Nathan was still in Cairo, oblivious, moving silently. Nathan retrieved his suitcase and left the house as quietly as he'd entered. Outside, he got back in his rental car and drove 2 blocks away, parking with a clear view of the house. Only then did he allow himself to think about what he'd heard. Maddie was planning to take Liam, to destroy him. The betrayal should have hurt, should have torn at him. But all Nathan felt was a cold, familiar focus. The same feeling he had before mission. Before a kill, he reached for his phone, hesitated, then put it away. No calls. Not yet. First, he needed to understand exactly what he was dealing with. The night passed slowly. Nathan watched the house, thinking, planning. Around 5 in the morning, lights came on. Maddie's morning routine was predictable. Coffee, shower, wake Liam, make breakfast. By 7:30, she'd be leaving for work, dropping Liam at school on her way. Nathan waited until he saw them leave, Maddie's silver Volvo backing out of the driveway, with Liam visible in the passenger seat. Only then did he return to the house. Inside, he moved with purpose. First, he went to the master bedroom. Maddie's side of the closet, her dresser drawers, her nightstand. She was careful he found nothing obvious. Her laptop was password protected, but that was no obstacle. Within minutes, he was scrolling through her emails, her browser history. Nothing incriminating, which meant she was using a different device or account for her communications. Smart. Nathan moved to the spare bedroom that Maddie used as a home office. More careful searching revealed a prepaid phone hidden inside a hollowed-out book, an old trick, but effective. The phone was password protected too, but again, this posed no real challenge. Soon he was reading through text messages, looking at call logs. Most of the texts were to a contact listed simply as R. The conversations were vague, careful, but with clear undertones. Plans being made, arrangements discussed, and through it all, an intimacy that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. Nathan felt a flicker of something, not jealousy, but a cold, hard anger. Not because she'd found someone else, but because she'd brought this into their home. Had risked Liam's safety and happiness for whatever this was. He continued his search, methodical and thorough. In the back of her desk drawer, beneath a stack of old greeting cards, he found what he was looking for. A folder containing fake passports for both Maddie and Liam, financial documents showing offshore accounts he knew nothing about, and a handwritten list of dates and locations. Miami featured prominently. So did an unfamiliar name, Ronan Voss. Nathan took pictures of everything with his phone, then replaced the documents exactly as he'd found them. She wouldn't know he'd been there. Next, he needed to know who this Ronan Voss was. For that, he needed resources he couldn't access from home. Nathan drove to a coffee shop downtown, ordered a black coffee, and sat in a corner booth with his back to the wall and a clear view of the entrance. Using a secure laptop he retrieved from a locker at the train station, another precaution from years of field work, he connected to databases that didn't officially exist. Ronan Voss, 45 years old, career criminal with convictions for fraud, extortion, assault, known connections to cartels operating along the southern border. Currently wanted in Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona for a series of investment scams targeting elderly victims. Nathan studied the man's photograph. Tall, well-built, with the kind of looks that aged well, silver at the temples, strong jawline, confident smile. The kind of man who could charm his way into anywhere, into anyone's life. The pieces were falling into place. Ronan had targeted Maddie, perhaps met her during one of Nathan's extended absences, had seen an opportunity, a lonely wife, a husband who was gone for weeks at a time, a comfortable lifestyle that hinted at money. But they'd miscalculated. They thought Nathan was just a logistics consultant with a good salary. They had no idea who they were really dealing with. Nathan spent the rest of the day gathering information. He tracked Ronan's movements over the past 6 months, finding patterns. The man had been in Denver repeatedly, staying at a hotel less than 2 miles from their house. He had rented a small apartment under a false name last month, a base of operations. Most likely to be why late afternoon, Nathan had a clear picture of what he was facing. Ronan was planning to use Maddie to get to Liam, then extract money from Nathan through ransom money Nathan would supposedly have access to as a successful consultant. Once they had the money, they planned to disappear, leaving Nathan with nothing. It was almost a good plan. Almost. Nathan closed the laptop, considering his options. He could go to the police, but that would mean questions that might lead to his real occupation, his work with the CIA. Not an option that he could confront Maddie directly, but that wouldn't solve the real problem. Ronan would still be out there, and Maddie had already proven her willingness to betray him, to put Liam at risk. There was only one solution, one way to ensure Liam's safety. Nathan would have to handle this personally. He needed more information before acting. Needed to understand exactly what he was up against. For that, he needed to observe his targets directly. Nathan drove to the address he'd found for Ronan's apartment and set up surveillance from a vacant office across the street. Through high-powered binoculars, he watched the comings and goings at the building. Around 6 that evening, he spotted Ronan for the first time, taller in person than his photos suggested, moving with the confident stride of a man who believed himself untouchable. 2 hours later, Ronan was joined by 3 men. Nathan photographed them through the window of the apartment. Hard-looking men with the watchful eyes of professionals. This wasn't just a con man scheme anymore. These were men hired for violence. Nathan ran their faces through his databases. All 3 had criminal records: assault, armed robbery, kidnapping. One had cartel connections. Hired muscle for the operation. The picture was becoming clearer. Ronan had assembled a crew specifically for abducting Liam, men with experience in taking people against their will, in using force. As Nathan watched, Ronan spread papers across a table. Even from this distance, Nathan could make out what appeared to be maps, photographs. The men gathered around, pointing, discussing, planning to take his son. Nathan continued his surveillance through the night. Around 10, a silver Volvo pulled up to the building. Maddie, through the binoculars, Nathan watched as she entered the apartment, embraced Ronan with a passion he'd never seen from her. The sight should have hurt, should have triggered jealousy or rage. Instead, it simply provided more data, more confirmation. Maddie stayed for nearly 2 hours. Through the window, Nathan could see her leaning over the table with the others, pointing at maps, nodding, animated. Not a passive participant, an active one, planning the abduction of her own child. When she finally left, Nathan followed her home at a safe distance, watching as she pulled into their driveway, entered their house, slept in their bed, acting as if everything was normal, as if she weren't plotting to destroy their family. The next day, Nathan expanded his surveillance. He followed Ronan to meetings with his crew, tracked their movements as they scouted locations, including Liam's school. They were thorough, professional in their preparations. Nathan was more thorough. He documented every meeting, every location, every conversation he could observe. He followed Maddie's patterns to her secret phone calls, her meetings with Ronan, her careful maintenance of her normal routine at home. The more he learned, the colder his resolve grew. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a threat to the one person Nathan truly loved. To Liam. By the third day of surveillance, Nathan had the complete picture. Ronan and his crew were planning to grab Liam after school the following Tuesday. Maddie would be at a fabricated faculty meeting, conveniently unable to pick up her son. Ronan's men would take Liam to a safe house they'd already secured. Then Maddie would discover Liam was missing, call Nathan in Cairo, hysterical. The ransom demand would follow $0.5 million. That was their price for Liam. Once the money was transferred to offshore accounts, Maddie would disappear with Ronan and Liam. They'd fly to Miami first, then to a non-extradition country using the fake passports. Nathan would be left with nothing. No son, no wife, no money. The plan was detailed, well thought out. It might have worked on a logistics consultant. But Nathan Beckett wasn't just a logistics consultant, that he was a ghost. A hunter, a killer, and now he had his targets. Nathan returned to his hotel room and began methodically planning his response. First, secure Liam. Then eliminate the threat. All of it, he would need to move carefully, strategically. No mistakes, no loose ends. Just a cold, precise operation. Just like all his other missions. But this one was different. This one was personal. Nathan's first priority was clear. Get Liam to safety without raising suspicion. He called Jack Sullivan from a burner phone, standing in the parking lot of the 24-hour diner. The morning sun cast a golden glow across the mountains in the distance. But Nathan's mind was occupied with darker thoughts. Jack answered on the third ring. Sullivan, it's Beckett. Nathan kept his voice level, neutral. Need a favor. A brief pause, then name it. This was why Nathan valued Jack. No questions, no hesitation. Their bond had been forged in war, tested in the blood-soaked mountains of Afghanistan, where they'd saved each other's lives more times than either cared to count. Need you to take Liam camping this weekend. Tomorrow morning through Sunday evening. Tell him it's a surprise from me. Everything all right? Jack asked, his voice immediately alert. Will be. Just need to handle something, and Liam needs to be clear of it. Your wife. Nathan paused. Jack had met Maddie only a handful of times, but the man was perceptive. Too perceptive sometimes. Not directly your concern, Nathan said. Just need to know Liam's safe. Understood. What time tomorrow? 9. I'll text you the address. Should I be armed? Nathan considered this. Ronan's men were professionals, but they weren't after Liam yet. Their plan was set for Tuesday. Still, precautions were necessary. Yes, discreetly. And Jack, Nathan hesitated. If anything feels wrong, if anyone follows you, take Liam and disappear. Call me from a payphone. Nowhere traceable. That's serious, huh? Jack's voice was calm, but Nathan could hear the tension underneath. That's serious. Copy that. 9 tomorrow. We'll be ghosts if needed. Appreciate it. Liam doesn't know anything. Keep it that way. Of course. The call ended. Nathan stared at the phone for a moment before dropping it into a trash can. He'd use another one to contact Jack tomorrow. With Liam's safety arranged, Nathan turned his attention to the next phase, reconnaissance of the safe house. The property was remote, a small ranch house set back from the road about 20 miles outside Denver. Isolated, private, perfect for holding a kidnapped child or for eliminating a threat without witnesses. Nathan approached the house after dark, on foot, moving through the surrounding woods with practiced silence. The property was well lit but minimally guarded. One man patrolled the perimeter, moving in predictable patterns. Sloppy, amateur. Through the windows, Nathan spotted 2 more men inside. One watching television, another cleaning a gun at the kitchen table. No sign of Ronan or Maddie. He circled the property twice, noting entrances, exits, blind spots. The alarm system was basic, the lock standard. Child's play for someone with his training. Nathan retreated back to his vehicle and drove to a motel 40 minutes away. There, he spread out the floor plans he'd obtained of the property and began mapping his approach. Timing would be critical. He needed to eliminate the entire crew in one swift operation before any of them could warn Ronan or Maddie. The next morning, Nathan watched from 2 blocks away as Jack's truck pulled into his driveway. He observed through binoculars as Maddie answered the door, her body language registering surprise. Jack handed her an envelope, the note Nathan had prepared explaining the camping trip. Maddie hesitated, her face showing brief confusion. But then Liam appeared beside her, excitement evident even from this distance. The boy rushed upstairs, presumably to pack, and returned minutes later with a backpack. Nathan felt a dull ache in his chest as he watched his son climb eagerly into Jack's truck. He should be the one taking Liam camping, teaching him to fish, showing him the stars without city lights drowning them out. Instead, he was preparing for bloodshed, for the elimination of a threat to his family. After they drove away, Nathan called Maddie's phone from another burner. "Hello." Her voice was guarded. "It's me," Nathan said. "Nathan? Why aren't you calling from your number?" "Phone died in Cairo. Had to borrow one." The lie came easily. "Is everything okay? You sound tense." "I'm fine." A pause. "Your friend Jack just picked up Liam for a camping trip? You could have told me about that in advance. Thought it would be a nice surprise for both of you. Jack's been wanting to take him for ages." Nathan kept his tone casual. "Is that a problem?" "No, it's just unexpected." Maddie sighed. "When are you coming home?" "Another few days, maybe." "Things are complicated here." "They always are." Was that relief in her voice? "Well, I guess I'll have a quiet weekend then." "Any plans?" Nathan asked. "Grading papers. Maybe catching a movie." Another lie. "I should go. I'm late for school." "Sure. Give Liam a hug for me when he gets back." After hanging up, Nathan drove to a hardware store and purchased what he needed: zip ties, gloves, cleaning supplies. The cashier barely glanced at him. Just another customer buying ordinary items. Nothing suspicious. The day passed slowly. Nathan kept surveillance on Ronan's apartment, watching the comings and goings of his crew. By late afternoon, he observed all 3 men leaving together, following them at a safe distance until they reached the safe house outside the city. Nathan parked a mile away in the lot of a closed-down gas station and waited for darkness. As dusk fell, he assembled his equipment: a Glock 19 with a suppressor, a combat knife, zip ties, night vision goggles, all stored in a black backpack that would attract no attention. When full darkness came, he moved through the woods toward the house, a shadow among shadows. The perimeter guard had grown complacent, smoking, checking his phone, oblivious to the threat approaching silently through the trees. Nathan waited until the man turned away, then moved quickly. One hand over the mouth, knife across the throat, a quick twist to prevent struggle. The guard's attempt to cry out was reduced to a wet gurgle as Nathan lowered him silently to the ground, point 1 down. Nathan approached the house cautiously, checking for any changes since his earlier reconnaissance. The second man was in the living room, watching a basketball game, beer in hand. The third was in what appeared to be a back bedroom, visible through a window, talking on the phone. Nathan picked the lock on the back door with practiced ease, entering silently into a mudroom. He could hear the television from the living room, the announcer's voice rising in excitement over a play. Perfect cover noise. The kitchen was dark, lit only by the glow of a range-hood light. Nathan moved through it like a ghost, positioning himself at the entrance to the living room, watching the back of the man's head. The man tilted his beer back, draining it, then stood, heading toward the kitchen. Nathan pressed himself against the wall beside the doorway, knife ready. As the man entered the kitchen, Nathan struck, one hand clamping over his mouth, knife finding the carotid artery in a practiced motion. The man struggled briefly, then went limp, point 2 down. Nathan lowered the body to the floor, careful to avoid making noise. He wiped his knife clean and moved deeper into the house, listening for the third man. A door opened down the hallway, and footsteps approached. "Hey, Rick, grab me a beer while you're..." The man froze as he entered the kitchen, eyes widening at the sight of his companion's body on the floor. Nathan didn't give him time to react. 3 quick strides, a powerful blow to the throat to silence any cry, then the knife quick and efficient point 3 down. Nathan stood in the kitchen, surrounded by the bodies of Ronan's men, breathing steadily. No emotion clouded his mind, no hesitation. Just the cold precision of an operative doing what was necessary to neutralize a threat. He surveyed the house methodically. For bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a finished basement. The men had been preparing it for Liam's arrival. 1 bedroom was set up with a child's mattress, chains bolted to the bed frame, heavy blackout curtains on the windows. The sight of it hardened Nathan's resolve even further. These men had been planning to hold his son captive in this room, to terrify him, to use him as leverage. The cold certainty of his next actions settled over Nathan like armor. Moving efficiently, he gathered the bodies and arranged them in the living room. He propped them in chairs around the coffee table, positioned as if they were in the middle of a meeting. A macabre tableau meant to send a message. In the bathroom, Nathan found what he needed: a first aid kit with gauze. He soaked strips of it in the blood pooling under one of the bodies, then used it to write on the wall above them, "You made a mistake." The message was clear, unmistakable, a warning that would strike fear into anyone who found it. Nathan surveyed his work with clinical detachment. The scene was set. Now he needed to wait for Ronan to discover it. He cleaned any traces of his presence from the house, wiping down surfaces he'd touched, removing footprints. Then he retreated to the woods surrounding the property, finding a vantage point with a clear view of the house, and waited. Morning came slowly, the sky lightening from black to deep blue to pale gray. Birds began to sing in the trees around him. Nathan remained motionless, a skill honed through countless sniper missions. His body was still, but his mind remained razor-sharp, focused on the house below. At 8:17 a.m., a black SUV pulled up the driveway. Ronan Voss stepped out, checking his phone, oblivious to what awaited him inside. Nathan observed through binoculars as Ronan approached the house, noting how the man moved with confidence, authority. The walk of someone who believed himself untouchable. That was about to change. Ronan unlocked the front door and entered. For nearly a minute, nothing happened. Then a shout muffled by distance, but unmistakably alarmed. More shouting. Ronan reappeared at the doorway, stumbling back outside, phone pressed to his ear, gesturing wildly. Nathan adjusted his binoculars, focusing on Ronan's face. Fear, confusion, rage. The man was unraveling, his careful plans disintegrating. Good. Through the directional microphone, Nathan caught fragments of Ronan's frantic call. All dead. Do you understand? All of them. A pause as he listened to the response. How the hell should I know? They're sitting in the living room with their throats cut. Someone wrote a message in their blood. For God's sake. Another pause. No, we can't go to the police. Are you insane? Just meet me at the backup location. 1 hour. Ronan ended the call, looked around wildly, then rushed back to his SUV. He nearly crashed, backing out of the driveway, tires throwing up gravel as he sped away. Nathan allowed himself a small, cold smile. Phase 1 complete. The enemy was off balance, frightened. Now for Phase 2, he returned to his vehicle and followed Ronan at a safe distance. The man drove erratically, constantly checking his mirrors, running a red light. Eventually, he pulled into the parking garage of a mid-range hotel near the airport. Nathan noted the location, then drove to a nearby coffee shop. Inside, he ordered coffee and opened his laptop, connecting to the hotel's reservation system through a back door he'd established years ago. Room 412, registered under the name Robert Vincent, paid for a week in advance. Nathan closed the laptop and sipped his coffee, planning his next move. Ronan would be waiting for Maddie now. He'd be agitated, unpredictable. That made him dangerous, but also careless. His phone vibrated. A text for Jack. Eagle secure. Fishing good. No tails. Nathan deleted the message. Liam was safe. Now he could focus entirely on eliminating the threat to his family. Nathan watched the hotel from his car for 3 hours, noting arrivals and departures. At 11:43 a.m., Maddie's silver Volvo pulled into the parking garage. He observed through binoculars as she hurried inside, sunglasses on despite the overcast day, checking over her shoulder repeatedly. She was frightened. Good. Nathan didn't follow her inside. He didn't need to hear their conversation to know what they were discussing. Their plans had gone sideways. Their crew was dead. Someone knew about them, was hunting them. They had no idea who. Not yet. After 2 hours, Maddie emerged from the hotel, her face pale, movements jerky with stress. She got in her car and drove away, heading in the direction of their home. Nathan tracked her for several blocks, then turned off, taking a different route to the house that he arrived first, entering through the back door using his key. Inside, he moved with purpose, checking each room methodically. Nothing had changed since his last visit. No surprises, no traps in the kitchen. Nathan opened the refrigerator, examining its contents. He removed a package of steaks he'd purchased the day before and set them on the counter to warm to room temperature. From the wine rack, he selected a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon, Maddie's favorite. As he worked, preparing a salad, setting the table with their best dishes, arranging candles in the center, his mind remained clear. This wasn't emotional for him. This was tactical, setting the stage for what needed to happen. The trap was set. The prey was panicking. All that remained was to close in for the kill. But first, he had a dinner to prepare. Nathan heard her car pull into the driveway 20 minutes later. The garage door opening. Footsteps approaching. A moment's pause as she noticed his car outside. Then the sound of the door opening. Nathan. Her voice contained exactly the right mix of surprise and delight. She was good. He had to give her that. You're home early. Nathan stepped out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. Surprise. He smiled, watching her face closely. Maddie dropped her bag and rushed to him, throwing her arms around his neck, pressing her lips to his. He returned the kiss mechanically, feeling nothing but cold assessment as he noted the tremor in her hands, the slightly too wide smile, the hint of fear behind her eyes. Why didn't you call to tell me you were coming home? I would have picked you up at the airport. Another lie, smooth as silk. Wanted to surprise you. Nathan gestured toward the kitchen. I'm making dinner. Your favorite steaks. That sounds wonderful. She followed him, her movements just a fraction too controlled. How was Cairo? Productive. Nathan turned to the steaks, seasoning them with salt and pepper. Got everything wrapped up faster than expected. That's great. She leaned against the counter, watching him. Liam will be so disappointed he missed you. He's out camping with your friend Jack. I know. I arranged it. Nathan met her eyes. Thought we could use some time alone. A flash of something worry? Panic? Crossed her face before she masked it with a smile. That was thoughtful of you. I'm capable of thoughtfulness occasionally. He turned his attention back to the steaks. How has your weekend been so far? Quiet. Just catching up on work. Maddie moved to the wine rack, selecting the bottle he'd already chosen. This one. Perfect. She opened the wine, her back to him as she worked the corkscrew. Did you hear about that break-in a few blocks over? The Miller's house. Happened last night. Creating an alibi. Establishing that she'd been home, aware of neighborhood happenings. Clever. No, I just got in this afternoon. Nathan turned on the gas stove, heating a cast-iron skillet until it smoked. Anyone hurt? No, they were out of town. But the police were everywhere this morning. She poured 2 glasses of wine, her hand steady now, getting her composure back. It's unsettling. We're safe. Nathan placed the steaks in a hot pan, the sizzle filling the kitchen. I'd never let anything happen to you or Liam. Her smile faltered for just a moment. I know. They moved around each other in the kitchen with the practiced ease of a decade together. Nathan cooked while Maddie set the table, lit the candles, put on soft music. To an observer, they would have looked like any couple enjoying a romantic evening together. Only Nathan knew this was Maddie's last supper. When a meal was ready, they sat across from each other at the dining table, the candles casting a warm glow between them. Nathan raised his glass. To surprises, he said. Maddie touched her glass to his. To surprises. They ate in relative silence, the tension beneath the surface growing with each passing minute. Nathan waited, watching her eat small bites, sip her wine too frequently. Her eyes kept darting to her phone, which she placed face down beside her plate. Expecting a call? he asked mildly. What? No. She pushed the phone slightly away. Just habit. How's Liam doing in school lately? I feel like I've missed so much being away. Her expression softened at the mention of their son, but something calculated lingered behind her eyes. He's doing great. His teacher says he's the brightest in his class. That doesn't surprise me. Nathan cut another piece of steak. I was thinking we might take a family vacation soon. The three of us. Maybe Disney World. He'd love that. Another sip of wine, longer this time. When were you thinking? Next month, maybe. Unless you already have plans. He watched her closely. I know you mentioned a girls' weekend in Miami. Her fork paused halfway to her mouth. Right. That's not until the end of the month. We could do Disney after. Miami. Nathan set down his knife and fork. Interesting choice. Lisa picked it. Maddie's voice remained even, but her knuckles whitened around her fork. She found cheap flights. Must be nice to have such reliable friends. Nathan leaned back in his chair, studying her face in the candlelight. People you can trust. Yes, it is. She set down her fork. Nathan, is something wrong? You seem different. Different how? I don't know. Distant. She reached across the table for his hand. Is everything okay with work? Nathan looked at her hand on his, the wedding ring catching the candlelight. He remembered putting that ring on her finger, believing in the vows they'd made, the life they planned. All lies. Did you think I wouldn't find out? He asked quietly, but Maddie's smile froze. Find out what? About Ronan. Nathan's voice remained calm, conversational. About your plan to take my son. The color drained from her face. Her hand withdrew as if burned. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult my intelligence, Maddie. Nathan took a sip of wine. I know everything. The kidnapping plan. The ransom. Miami. All of it. Nathan, you're not making sense. Her voice wavered, the first real crack in her composure. Who is Ronan? What kidnapping? I was home 2 nights ago. I heard you on the phone. Nathan set his wine glass down carefully. Just kidnap his son and ask for money. Those were your exact words. After you get the money, we move to Miami. She shook her head, eyes wide with manufactured confusion. You must have been dreaming. Or maybe you overheard a movie I was watching. A movie? Nathan nodded slowly. That's the best you can do. Nathan, please. I found the passports, Maddie. The offshore accounts. I know about the safe house, the one with a room prepared for Liam. Chains on the bed. Blackout curtains. Her breathing quickened, eyes darting toward the door. I also found your lover's crew. Nathan leaned forward. All 3 of them. They weren't very cooperative at first, but they came around. Understanding dawned in her eyes, followed by horror. It was you. At the house. It was me. Nathan's voice hardened. Did Ronan tell you what he found this morning? His men arranged neatly in chairs, throats cut, a message on the wall in their blood. Maddie pushed back from the table abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You're insane. No, Maddie. I'm exactly what I've always been. Nathan remained seated, watching her. You just never bothered to look closely enough to see it. I'm leaving. She stood, reaching for her phone. You need help, Nathan. The doors are locked. Nathan took another bite of his steak. So are the windows. Sit down. Finish your dinner. We're not done talking. Maddie's eyes widened, darting to the kitchen door, then back to Nathan. You can't keep me here. I've kept you for 10 years. Nathan cut another piece of steak, his movements deliberate, calm. What's one more night? I'm calling the police. She raised her phone, fingers trembling. With what evidence? Your boyfriend's dead crew? The fake passports you purchased? The offshore accounts in your name? Nathan didn't look up from his plate. By all means, involve the authorities. I'm sure they'll be very interested in your kidnapping plot. Her hand lowered slowly, the phone clutched in white-knuckled fingers. What do you want? The truth. For once. Nathan gestured to her chair. Sit down. For a moment, he thought she might try to run. But logic prevailed, and Maddie slowly sank back into her seat. How long? Nathan asked. How long what? How long have you been planning to destroy our family? Maddie looked away, her jaw tight. You wouldn't understand. Try me. It's not what you think. What I think, Nathan said evenly, is that you've been sleeping with a con man, planning to kidnap my son, extort money from me, and disappear to begin a new life. What part am I misunderstanding? Maddie's eyes flashed with sudden defiance. The part where you've been lying to me for our entire marriage. The part where you disappear for weeks with barely an explanation. The part where I'm married to a stranger. Nathan sat back, studying her. So this is my fault? You're not who you say you are. Maddie leaned forward. Logistics consultant? Please. I've seen the scars, Nathan. I've noticed the gun you think I don't know about. The way you check exits in every room. The nightmares where you speak languages I've never heard you speak awake. And that justifies threatening our son. Liam would never have been hurt. Her voice rose for the first time. It was just what? A game? A way to punish me? Nathan's voice remained deadly calm. You were going to chain our 10-year-old son to a bed, terrify him, make him believe he'd been taken by strangers. Ronan said what you wanted to hear. Nathan cut her off. He saw an opportunity, a bitter, neglected wife with access to what he assumed was money. He played you, Maddie, and you were so eager to believe him. You were willing to sacrifice your own child. That's not true. Tears filled her eyes, but Nathan couldn't tell if they were genuine or another performance. Liam would have been with me the whole time. Safe. Safe. Nathan repeated the word, letting it hang in the air. There's nothing safe about trauma, Maddie. Nothing safe about teaching a child he can't trust his own mother. Like he can trust you. She wiped at her eyes angrily. The father who's never there? Who misses baseball games and science fairs? Who calls on birthdays but can't be bothered to show up? I've never put him in danger. Nathan's voice hardened. I've never used him as a pawn. No, you just abandoned him. Over and over. Nathan felt a flicker of something, not guilt, but acknowledgement. She wasn't entirely wrong. He had missed too much, had put his mission above his family too often. But that didn't excuse what she'd planned. What was the plan after you got the money? He asked. Disappear? New identities? New life with your convicted felon boyfriend? Maddie hesitated, then gave a small nod. Something like that. And Liam? How did you think he'd feel, being torn away from his home, his friends, his father? He'd adapt. Children do. She looked down at her plate. Besides, it's not like you'd miss him. Not really. You'd be on to the next mission, the next alias, the next lie. The cruel assessment struck closer to home than Nathan wanted to admit. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. You're wrong. His voice was quiet but firm. Liam is everything to me. The only real thing in my life. More real than me. Maddie asked, a bitter edge to her voice. More real than our marriage. Our marriage died the moment you decided to use our son as leverage. Nathan stood, his decision made. But you're right about one thing. I have been living a lie. Just not the one you think. What does that mean? It means I'm not a logistics consultant. Nathan moved around the table, approaching her chair. I work for the government. CIA. I don't arrange shipping routes. I eliminate threats to national security. Maddie's eyes widened in disbelief, then narrowed. You expect me to believe that? I don't particularly care what you believe anymore. Nathan stood over her. But it explains the absences, the scars, the weapons. It explains why I was able to track down your boyfriend, why I was able to eliminate his crew without leaving a trace. If that's true, she swallowed hard. If that's true, then you're a killer. Nathan finished for her. Yes, among other things. Fear flickered across her face. What are you going to do to me? Nathan didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed her arm, yanking her to her feet. Please, Nathan. Her voice broke as realization dawned. Please don't hurt me. Like you weren't going to hurt me. His grip tightened. Take everything I care about? Destroy my life? My son. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears streaming down her face now. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. Yes, you did. Nathan steered her toward the basement door. The worst mistake of your life. Maddie pulled away suddenly, desperation giving her strength. She lunged toward the kitchen counter, grabbing a knife from the block. Stay back. Nathan didn't hesitate. He moved with practiced efficiency, catching her wrist before she could bring the knife to bear. One twist, and the blade clattered to the floor. Another movement, and Maddie's face was slammed against the dining table, blood spattering from her nose onto the white tablecloth. She cried out in pain, struggling against his grip. That was stupid, Nathan said, his voice calm despite the violence of his actions. Very stupid. Maddie sobbed, blood streaming from her nose. Please, don't kill me. Nathan pulled her upright, keeping her arms pinned behind her. The basement. Now. He forced her toward the basement door, opened it with one hand while maintaining his grip with the other. The stairs descended into darkness, the space below dimly lit by a single bulb. Please, Maddie begged as he pushed her forward. I'll do anything. Just don't hurt me. Nathan shoved her roughly through the doorway. She stumbled on the top step, nearly falling. Nathan caught her arm, steadying her with a grip that would leave bruises. Move, he ordered. Sobbing, blood still flowing from her nose, Maddie descended the stairs. Nathan followed close behind, closing the door firmly behind them. The lock clicked with finality, in the dim light. Maddie turned to face him, her eyes wide with terror. Nathan, please. Think about Liam. What will you tell him? That his mother abandoned him. Nathan's voice was cold, emotionless. Or maybe that she died. Either way, he'll never know what you planned to do to him. I wasn't thinking clearly. Maddie backed away as Nathan advanced. Ronan manipulated me. Enough lies. Nathan's patience had run out. You made your choice, Maddie. You chose Ronan. You chose betrayal. You chose to put my son at risk. Our son, she whispered. Not anymore. Maddie's back hit the wall. There was nowhere left to run. What are you going to do? Nathan stepped closer, his expression unreadable in the shadows. What I have to do. Maddie's screams began, then desperate, terrified. But the basement was soundproofed, the walls thick. No one would hear her. No one would come. The basement door closed. Her screams never made it past the walls. Night had fallen by the time Nathan finished preparing. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of settling wood. Outside, a light rain had begun, droplets tapping against the windows like impatient fingers in the basement. Maddie sat tied to a chair, her wrists and ankles secured with zip ties. Her face was swollen from where Nathan had slammed it against the table. Dried blood crusted around her nostrils and upper lip. She had stopped screaming hours ago, her voice reduced to occasional whimpers. Nathan checked his watch. 11:47 p.m. Right on schedule, he had sent the text to Ronan at 10:30. Using Maddie's phone, he knows. Come to the house. Need help. Use the back door. 11:45. Simple. Direct. Desperate. The perfect bait. Nathan moved silently up the basement stairs, leaving Maddie in the dim light of a single bulb. At the top, he paused, listening. No sound of a car yet, but Ronan would be careful. He'd park down the street, approach on foot. Nathan switched off all the lights in the house, except one in the kitchen, enough to guide Ronan to the back door without making him suspicious. Then he positioned himself in the darkened dining room, with a clear view of both the back entrance and the basement door. His Glock rested on the table beside him, but Nathan doubted he'd need it. This would be more personal. He didn't have to wait long. At 11:52, the faint sound of footsteps on wet pavement reached his ears. Careful steps, trying to be silent. A shadow passed by the kitchen window. Then a gentle testing of the back door handle. The IT was unlocked, as promised in the text. The door opened slowly, hinges whispering. A tall figure entered, closing the door carefully behind him. Ronan Voss stood in the kitchen, a gun held low at his side, eyes scanning the room. Maddie, he called softly. Where are you? Nathan remained perfectly still, watching as Ronan moved further into the house. The man was tense, alert, but not alert enough. He hadn't noticed Nathan sitting in the shadows of the dining room. Maddie, a little louder now, concern creeping into his voice. Nathan waited until Ronan was fully in the kitchen, then spoke. She's downstairs. Ronan spun, gun rising, but Nathan was already in motion. He crossed the distance between them in 3 swift strides. One hand knocked the gun aside as it fired, the bullet splintering a cabinet. His other hand delivered a crushing blow to Ronan's throat. The larger man stumbled backward, gasping, clawing at his neck. Nathan followed, methodical, relentless. A precise strike to the solar plexus doubled Ronan over. A knee to the face as he bent forward sent him crashing to the floor. Nathan kicked the fallen gun under the refrigerator, then stood over Ronan as he struggled to breathe. Quiet now, Nathan said softly. We don't want to wake the neighbors. Ronan looked up, blood streaming from his shattered nose, recognition dawning in his eyes. He wheezed. Me. Nathan crouched beside him. The husband. The mark. The man whose son you planned to kidnap. Listen. Ronan tried to push himself up, but Nathan placed a foot on his chest, pressing him back to the floor. No, you listen. Nathan increased the pressure until Ronan gasped. You made a mistake. A terminal one. I can explain. Ronan managed, his voice strained. Explain. Nathan tilted his head. Explain chains on a bed mint for a 10-year-old boy. Explain fake passports. Explain offshore accounts. Fear flickered in Ronan's eyes. It wasn't like that, wasn't it? Nathan removed his foot, only to grab Ronan by the collar and haul him upright. Why don't we ask Maddie? She's waiting for you. Nathan dragged the larger man toward the basement door, Ronan stumbling, still struggling to catch his breath. Blood dripped from his nose, leaving a trail across the kitchen floor. Nathan opened the door with one hand, keeping his grip on Ronan with the other. After you, he said, shoving Ronan toward the stairs. Ronan staggered, nearly falling, catching himself on the railing at the last moment. He looked back at Nathan, then down the stairs into the dimly lit basement. Move, Nathan ordered, his voice cold. Ronan descended slowly, Nathan close behind. When they reached the bottom, Ronan froze at the sight before him. Maddie was tied to a chair in the center of the room. Her head hung forward, hair obscuring her face, but the sound of their footsteps, she looked up. Her eyes widened when she saw Ronan. No, she moaned. No, you shouldn't have come. It's a trap. Too late for warnings, Maddie. Nathan pushed Ronan forward, into the pool of light cast by the single bulb. Your boyfriend decided to play hero. Ronan's eyes darted around the basement, looking for escape routes, weapons, anything that might help. There was nothing, just concrete walls, storage boxes, and the three of them. Sit down, Nathan directed, shoving Ronan toward another chair positioned opposite Maddie. Look, man, we can work this out. Ronan raised his hands, placating. Nobody's been hurt yet. We can just walk away from this. All of us. Sit down. Nathan's voice left no room for argument. Ronan lowered himself into the chair, wincing as his bruised body protested the movement. Nathan secured him with zip ties ankles to chair legs, wrists behind his back working quickly, efficiently. Nathan, please, Maddie begged. Don't do this. We made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But Liam's fine, he's safe. No one was hurt. No one was hurt. Nathan stepped back, looking between them. You were going to kidnap my son. Chain him to a bed. Terrify him. Use him as leverage. We wouldn't have hurt him, Ronan insisted. It was just about the money. Just about the money. Nathan nodded slowly. $5 million. That was your price for my son's trauma. We were desperate, Maddie said. Desperate? Nathan turned to her. You live in a nice house. You have a good job. Your son is healthy, happy. What exactly were you desperate for, Maddie? She looked away, unable to meet his gaze. Freedom, Ronan answered for her. She wanted freedom from this life. From you. Nathan's attention shifted to Ronan. And you were her ticket out? The convicted felon? The man who preys on vulnerable women. I love her, Ronan declared, straightening in his chair despite his restraints. More than you ever did. A smile touched Nathan's lips, cold and humorless. Love. Is that what you call it? Using her to get to me? Convincing her to risk her son's safety for money. You don't understand. Ronan began. I understand perfectly. Nathan cut him off. You saw an opportunity. A lonely wife. A husband who traveled frequently. The appearance of money. You played her, manipulated her, all to set up your con. That's not true, Ronan protested, looking at Maddie. Tell him, Maddie. Tell him what we have is real. Maddie's eyes flicked between Ronan and Nathan, uncertain, afraid. I thought it was real. Of course it was real. Ronan leaned forward against his restraints. Everything I told you is true. I love you. We can still have that life together. The life funded by ransom money, Nathan observed. The life built on traumatizing a child. We would have given him back, Ronan insisted. Unharmed. Once we got the money. And if I couldn't deliver? If I didn't have $5 million to hand over? A flicker of something annoyance? Frustration? Crossed Ronan's face before he masked it. We would have worked something out. Worked something out. Nathan nodded thoughtfully. Or maybe you would have just taken Maddie and Liam anyway, leaving me with nothing. That was the backup plan, wasn't it? Ronan's silence was answer enough. You thought I was just a logistics consultant, Nathan continued. An easy mark. A man who would crumble at the threat to his family. What else would you be? Ronan asked, genuinely confused. Nathan smiled again, that same cold, empty expression. Someone you should never have crossed. He turned away, moving to a workbench along the wall. From a drawer, he removed a roll of duct tape, tearing off a piece. Nathan, what are you doing? Maddie asked, her voice rising with panic. Making sure our conversation isn't interrupted. Nathan approached Ronan, pressing the tape over his mouth despite his attempts to turn away. Then he repeated the process with Maddie. With both of them silenced, Nathan pulled up a third chair, placing it between them. He sat down, perfectly at ease, as if they were having a normal conversation in a living room instead of a basement. You know, the irony is I could almost understand it from Ronan. Nathan looked at the man. He's a predator. That's what predators do. They hunt the vulnerable. They manipulate. They take. Nathan shifted his gaze to Maddie. But you're Liam's mother. The one person in the world who should protect him above all else. And you were willing to trade his well-being for what? A fantasy life with a con man. Maddie's eyes filled with tears, but Nathan felt nothing at the sight. The woman who had been his wife was dead to him already. This was just confirming what he already knew. Here's what happens next, Nathan said calmly. One of you is leaving this basement alive. The other isn't. I'll let you decide which. Panic flared in both their eyes. Ronan began struggling against his restraints, the chair legs scraping against concrete. Maddie just stared at Nathan, her breathing rapid, shallow. Oh, not like that, Nathan clarified. I'm not asking you to choose. I already know who dies tonight. I'm giving you the chance to understand why. He stood and walked behind Ronan, placing his hands on the man's shoulders. Ronan tensed, trying to see what Nathan was doing. You see, Ronan made a critical error. He thought I was just a husband, just a father, just a man who could be broken and bled for money. Nathan's hands tightened. He didn't know what I really am. Nathan leaned down, speaking directly into Ronan's ear. I'm the man governments call when they need someone eliminated. I'm the ghost in the intelligence reports. The operative no one sees coming. Ronan's eyes widened, understanding and terror bleeding into his expression. I've killed men in 17 countries, Nathan continued, his voice almost conversational. Terrorists, arms dealers, bomb makers, threats to national security. He circled back to stand in front of them both. And now you, because you threatened something far more important than national security. You threatened my son. Nathan reached into his pocket and removed a small handgun, not his service weapon, but a clean one, untraceable. You could have chosen anyone else, he told Ronan. Any other woman, any other family. But you chose mine. He raised the gun, aiming it at Ronan's knee. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space, the sound bouncing off concrete walls. Ronan screamed behind the duct tape, the chair toppling as he convulsed in pain. Maddie's muffled screams joined his, her body jerking against the restraints. Nathan watched impassively as Ronan writhed on the floor, blood pooling beneath his shattered knee. That's for planning to take my son, Nathan said quietly. He walked over and crouched beside Ronan, whose face was contorted in agony. Did you know that a knee wound is one of the most painful injuries possible? So many nerve endings, so much damage. Ronan's eyes pleaded through the pain, begging, desperate. You thought you could take my life apart, Nathan continued, piece by piece. My son, my money, my future. Also, you could run off to Miami and play happy family with a woman you manipulated. He stood, looking down at Ronan, who was still struggling to breathe through the pain. Then he shifted his gaze to Maddie, who had gone silent, shock settling over her features. You wanted to destroy me, Nathan asked, addressing them both. This is what destruction looks like. He aimed the gun at Ronan's chest and fired a second time. The man's body jerked once, then went still. The basement fell silent, except for Maddie's ragged breathing through her nose. Nathan turned to her, gun still in hand. She stared back, terror and resignation warring in her eyes. "Now it's just us," he said softly. The way it was supposed to be, husband and wife. He reached out and peeled the tape from her mouth, almost gently. "Any last words, Maddie?" She swallowed, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, Nathan. Please, think about Liam. He needs his mother." "No." Nathan shook his head. He needed a mother who would protect him, who would put his needs above her desires. "That wasn't you. I made a mistake." She sobbed openly now. "A terrible mistake. I wasn't thinking clearly. Ronan convinced me." "Stop." Nathan's voice cut through her pleas. "No more excuses. No more shifting blame. You chose this, Maddie. Every step of the way. What will you tell Liam?" Her voice was barely audible. "That his mother loved him very much," Nathan replied. "That she died suddenly, tragically. That she would want him to be strong, to move forward. You're going to lie to him." A hint of bitter accusation crept in her tone, even now. "I'm going to protect him." Nathan raised the gun, pressing the barrel against her forehead. "The way you never could." Maddie closed her eyes, trembling. "I did love him, Nathan. And I loved you once too." "Not enough." Nathan's finger tightened on the trigger. "Not nearly enough." The shot echoed through the basement, and then there was silence. Nathan worked methodically through the night. First, he wrapped the bodies in plastic sheeting from the garage. Then he cleaned the basement floor, removing all traces of blood with bleach and industrial cleaner. He gathered the weapons, the restraints, the spent shell casings, everything that could connect him to what had happened. By dawn, the basement looked ordinary again. Just a storage space. No signs of the night's events remained. Nathan loaded the wrapped bodies into the trunk of a car he'd acquired specifically for this purpose, paid for in cash, registered under a false name that would lead nowhere. He drove north into the mountains to a location he'd selected days ago, a remote spot where the earth was soft, where hikers rarely ventured. It took 3 hours to dig the graves. The work was hard, physical, but Nathan welcomed it. The exertion helped clear his mind, helped him focus on what came next. He buried them deep, then carefully restored the ground above. By the time he was finished, even trained eyes would struggle to identify the disturbed earth. Nature would do the rest, reclaiming the site within weeks. On the drive back, Nathan made a call from another burner phone. "Sullivan." Jack answered on the second ring. "It's me," Nathan said. "We're clear. Bring Liam home." "You sure?" Jack's voice was careful, neutral. He didn't ask for details. Didn't want to know. "I'm sure. It's over. We'll be there by 4. Caught some nice trout. Kid's a natural." "Good." Nathan felt something loosen in his chest, the first genuine relief in days. "Thanks, Jack. Don't mention it." A pause. "Ever." The call ended. Nathan drove to a self-storage facility on the outskirts of Denver. He parked the car inside a pre-rented unit, wiped it down thoroughly, then walked 3 miles to where he'd left his own vehicle. By noon, he was back at the house. He showered, washing away the dirt and sweat, then began the next phase of his plan. From Maddie's phone, he sent text to her principal and close friends. A sudden family emergency. Her mother critically ill in Chicago, taking an immediate leave of absence. From her laptop, he sent more detailed emails, apologizing for the abrupt departure, promising updates when she could. Her clothes, personal items, toiletries, he packed them into suitcases, which would later be donated to shelters in different cities. Her car, he would drive to Chicago and abandon in a long-term parking lot near the airport. The story was simple. Maddie had gone to Chicago for a family emergency. After a few weeks, she'd call Nathan, telling him she needed space, wasn't coming back. Later, paperwork would arrive: separation, divorce. She'd relinquish custody of Liam, wanting a fresh start. Eventually, after appropriate time had passed, Nathan would notify authorities that he'd lost contact with her. Investigations would find little. Another missing person, presumed to have started a new life somewhere else. It happened every day. As for Ronan, he was already a man who lived off the grid, who used aliases, who disappeared for months at a time. No one would look too hard for him. Why mid-afternoon, Nathan had erased all physical traces of Maddie from the house. Photos remained, of course, and her presence in Liam's room, books they'd read together, toys she'd bought him. Those would stay. Liam needed his memories of his mother, untainted by the truth. At precisely 3:52 p.m., Jack's truck pulled into the driveway. Nathan watched from the living room window as his son jumped out, fishing rod in hand, face sunburned and grinning. The sight sent a wave of emotion through Nathan: relief, love, and a fierce protectiveness that overshadowed everything else. Nathan opened the front door as Liam raced up the path. "Dad!" The boy launched himself forward, and Nathan caught him in a tight hug. "You're home. Did you bring me something from Cairo?" "Of course I did." Nathan held his son close, breathing in the scent of pine needles, lake water, childhood. "It's in my suitcase. But first, tell me about fishing. Did you catch anything big?" "I caught 3 trout. Uncle Jack showed me how to clean them and everything. It was awesome." Liam pulled back, looking around. "Where's Mom? She has to see the pictures we took." Nathan's face grew solemn. "Your mom had to go away suddenly, buddy. Her mother, your grandmother, is very sick. She had to fly to Chicago this morning." Liam's excitement dimmed. "Is Grandma going to be okay?" "I don't know yet." Nathan brushed the hair back from his son's forehead. "But your mom will call soon to let us know. Why didn't she wait until I got back to say goodbye? It was an emergency. She had to leave right away." Nathan forced a reassuring smile. "She left you a note, though, and she said to give you a huge hug from her." Liam nodded, processing this. "Can we call her?" "She'll call us when she can. The hospital has strict rules about phones." Nathan turned to Jack, who stood a few paces back, watching the exchange with a carefully neutral expression. "Thanks for taking him, Jack. Looks like you two had a great time." "Anytime." Jack's eyes held a question that Nathan answered with a slight nod. "All clear. No danger. He's a good kid. Got the makings of a real outdoorsman." "Can Uncle Jack stay for dinner?" Liam asked. "Not tonight, buddy." Jack ruffled Liam's hair. "Got to get back to my own place. But we'll do this again soon, okay?" After Jack left, Nathan helped Liam unpack. The boy chattered excitedly about the camping trip, the stars, the campfire, the fish he'd caught, the hike they'd taken to a waterfall. Nathan listened attentively, committing every detail to memory, grateful for these ordinary moments. "So where's my present?" Liam asked as they finished putting away his gear. Nathan smiled. "Let me get it." He went to his bedroom and returned with a small, carved wooden box. "This is from a market in Cairo. The man who made it said it was for keeping treasures." Liam took the box reverently, examining the intricate patterns carved into its surface. "It's so cool," he whispered, opening it. Inside was a small stone scarab, polished to a deep blue shine. "What's this?" "A scarab beetle. In ancient Egypt, they were considered good luck, protection." Nathan watched his son's face. "I thought you could keep it in your room, to watch over you." "Like you do." Liam looked up, his expression serious. "Exactly like I do." Nathan pulled him into another hug. "Always." That night, they ordered pizza and watched movies together on the couch. Liam fell asleep halfway through the second film, his head resting against Nathan's shoulder. Nathan sat very still, watching his son's peaceful face in the flickering light from the television. Everything he had done, the violence, the deception, the bodies buried in the mountains, had been for this. For Liam's safety. For his future. Nathan carried his sleeping son upstairs and tucked him into bed. Standing in the doorway afterward, watching Liam's chest rise and fall with each breath, Nathan made a silent promise. No one would ever threaten his son again. No one would ever take him away. No one would ever hurt him, whatever it cost. Whatever he had to do, whatever lies he had to tell. The weeks that followed fell into a new rhythm. Nathan took a leave of absence from the CIA, citing family needs. Michaels didn't ask questions, simply approved the request with a knowing look. The agency could function without one operative for a while, even one of Nathan's caliber. Each morning, Nathan made Liam breakfast, packed his lunch, drove him to school. Each afternoon, he was there at pickup, waiting with the other parents. Homework, dinner, bedtime stories, he built a routine around his son's needs, becoming both mother and father. Liam asked about Maddie daily at first. When could they call her? Why hadn't she called them? When was she coming home? Nathan's answers were consistent, carefully crafted. Her mother was still very ill. The hospital had strict rules about phone calls. She'd contact them as soon as she could. After 2 weeks, he staged the first phone call a voice actress hired through layers of cutouts, briefed extensively on Maddie's speech patterns and personal details. The call was brief, emotional, designed to satisfy Liam's immediate need to hear his mother's voice while planting the first seeds as she might be away longer than expected. "I miss you so much, sweetie," the voice that sounded just like Maddie said. "Be good for your dad, okay? Grandma needs me right now. When are you coming home?" Liam had asked, clutching the phone. "I don't know yet, baby. Hopefully soon. I love you." 3 more calls followed over the next month, each one slightly longer, slightly more distant. The last one included the first hint. "I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, Liam. I might need some time for myself after Grandma gets better." Liam didn't fully understand, but Nathan watched the idea take root that his mother might not be coming home right away, that something had changed. 6 weeks after that night in the basement, the divorce papers arrived. Nathan presented them to Liam carefully, sitting him down for a difficult conversation. "Mom and I have decided to live apart," he explained, keeping his voice gentle but matter-of-fact. "She's going to stay in Chicago for now, and you'll live here with me." "But why?" Liam's eyes filled with tears. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, buddy, absolutely not." Nathan pulled him close. "This has nothing to do with you. Sometimes adults just change. They need different things. But we both love you very much. That will never change. Will I still see her?" Nathan hesitated, weighing truth against kindness. "She needs some time to figure things out. She'll call, and maybe you can visit her someday. But for now, it's going to be you and me." The tears came then, hot and angry. Liam stormed to his room, slammed the door. Nathan let him go, understanding the need to process the pain privately. Later, he sat on the edge of Liam's bed, rubbing small circles on his back as the boy cried himself to sleep. The next morning, life continued. Breakfast, school, homework, dinner. The routine provided structure, stability. Slowly, Liam adjusted to the new normal. 3 months after that night, Nathan accepted a new assignment local, no travel required. Intelligence analysis rather than field operations. Michaels had arranged it personally, understanding without being told that Nathan's priorities had shifted. "How's the boy?" Michaels asked during their first meeting back. "Adapting," Nathan replied. "Kids are resilient." Michaels nodded, studying him. "And the wife?" "Still in Chicago." A moment of silence stretched between them. In that moment, Nathan knew that Michaels understood exactly what had happened. Not the details, perhaps, but enough. "She's where she needs to be," Nathan said finally. "Good." Michaels closed the file on his desk. The job's changed. More analysis, less field work. Regular hours. "You'll be home for dinner every night." "Thank you." The words were simple, but carried the weight of everything unsaid. "Don't thank me," Michaels said. "Just be a good father. That boy needs you." As summer approached, Nathan and Liam settled fully into their life together. The questions about Maddie grew less frequent. The phone calls reduced to monthly check-ins. Liam still missed his mother, still asked when he might see her. But the urgency had faded. One evening in early June, they sat on the back porch, Nathan grilling burgers while Liam set the table. The normality of the moment struck Nathan suddenly how ordinary their life had become, how far removed from the violence and deception of those 3 days in winter. "Dad," Liam looked up from arranging napkins. "Can I ask you something?" "Always. Is Mom ever really coming back?" Nathan turned from the grill, meeting his son's eyes. The boy was growing up, becoming more perceptive. Soon, simple explanations wouldn't be enough. "I don't think so, buddy," he answered honestly. "I think she's made a new life for herself." Liam nodded slowly. "That's what I thought." He was quiet for a moment, then added, "I'm glad I have you, though, and I'm glad I have you." Nathan squeezed his shoulder. "We're going to be okay, you know that, right? Whatever happens, we have each other." "I know." Liam's smile was small but genuine. "You're not going anywhere." "Never," Nathan promised. "Not ever." Later that night, after Liam was asleep, Nathan sat in the darkened living room with a glass of bourbon. He thought about Maddie, about Ronan, about the graves in the mountains that would never be found. He thought about the lies he told his son, the truth he could never share, that he had eliminated the threat to his family, had ensured Liam's safety, his future, had done what was necessary, what no one else could or would have done. Nathan finished his drink and went upstairs. He paused at Liam's door, listening to his son's even breathing. Then he continued to his own room, empty now of Maddie's presence, rearranged to reflect his solitary occupancy. As he prepared for bed, Nathan caught sight of his reflection in the mirror. The face that looked back at him was calm, composed. The face of a man who had made peace with his choices, that he had paid the price for what was most important. For Liam, for their future together, that it was a price he would pay again without hesitation, because that's what fathers did. They protected their children, by any means necessary, and no matter the cost.